right, good evening, everyone. We'll just wait a few more minutes for everyone to join, and then we will get the meeting started. So thank you for your patience.
Craig, Chuck is here now, so whenever you're ready, you guys can get started or have me give the pre-meeting reminders.
Sure, why don't you go ahead and do the pre-meeting reminders, and then we'll get started.
Okay, well, welcome everyone. If this is your first time joining us or you haven't joined us in a long time, this is a little refresher for how we run our meetings through Zoom. You'll notice that everyone is muted, and you're going to stay muted throughout the duration of the meeting, except for whenever either of our co-chairs calls on you. Following the presentations, the co-chairs will call on members of the public who wish to speak on the subject of the item. You can participate by going to the reactions icon and pressing the raise hand button. It's not the wave or the thumbs up, those will disappear. Look for the button that says raise hand. Only press it once. If you press it a second time, your hand will go back down. If you're using the phone to call in, you're going to press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Be on the lookout for a prompt on your screen asking you to confirm unmuting once one of the co-chairs calls on you. If you're having technical support problems, you can use the chat. It is only for technical support. It is not to ask questions or make comments to the co-chairs or presenters. They will never see those chats. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you'll need to go to the participants section, or you'll find the raise hand feature there. And finally, we ask you not to raise your actual hand or wave at the screen to get attention, because we may not be able to see you and we may miss you. So chat me if you're having problems. I'm here to support. With that, I'll hand it back over to Chuck and Craig.
Yeah.
Great.
Why don't I turn it over to Craig, because I have to recuse myself from the first item on the agenda since Xtel is a client of my firm. And I think, Craig, that we're not going to have the second item. Is that, why don't you go ahead and announce
Right.
that?
I actually haven't introduced us, so I just want to welcome everyone to the June 1st, 2022 meeting of Community Board 8 Manhattan's Transportation Committee meeting. And I'm Craig Lader. I'm one of the co-chairs along with Chuck Warren, who just spoke. And as Chuck alluded to, for anyone who is here in regards to the second item, which was a revocable consent request, the applicant had to reschedule until July because they hadn't properly noticed around the site. I'm just pulling up the address just in case anyone was wondering. So that item, which was 890 Park Avenue, is going to be heard in July. So if anyone is here for that and wishes to leave the meeting, feel free to. Otherwise, you may all be interested in what our main topic of discussion is tonight, which is a public discussion with representatives from Xtel Development and Hospital for Special Surgery regarding transportation-related issues pertaining to the new development under construction at 403 East 79th Street. That's the corner of 79th Street and 1st Avenue. And before we begin, I just want to respectfully ask that this discussion really try to remain focused around transportation issues. The history is that this is, I believe, an as-of-right development, And the Zoning and Development Committee of CB8 heard this item in January. It was actually not required to be presented, but Extel came to the committee to answer questions, to talk about the development and to talk about its plans, and to address any zoning related questions that related to it. Much of that discussion actually did relate around transportation questions. And they had said that they were hopefully going to be conducting a parking study and looking at issues that we had raised, much of which revolved around the driveway that they had as part of their plans, and the lack of parking and related issues, ancillary issues related to on-street parking regulations, loading questions, where the nearby bus stops were going to be relocated to temporarily, things of that nature. So that led us to invite them, and they were gracious enough to attend today's meeting. So with that, I know we have a few representatives from Extel and Hospital for Special Surgery here, and I'm hoping you can just, Will, if you could just unmute them and allow them to represent themselves, introduce themselves. I don't know if they have a presentation that they wish to make, but this would be the perfect time to do it.
Eli, you should go ahead and unmute, and then we'll unmute the rest of your team. Eli, you just have to hit the unmute button on your screen. There you go. Check your phone mute now, because I think you muted your phone, so we don't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, wonderful.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, do we have that presentation up on the screen? I don't see it. There should be someone from Phil Habib Associates.
Yeah, they can go ahead.
There we go. Thank you. So good evening, everyone. I'm Eli Cupseal, Extel Development Company. Co-chairs Craig Lader and Chuck Warren, members of the committee. Thank you for having us tonight. I understand that there are new members and public members here this evening, so congratulations. Serving on the community board is an awesome responsibility, and we appreciate your doing this. I am Senior Vice President, Development and Commercial Leasing. I'm responsible for this development. I want to thank Craig Lader for inviting us on January 25th to present to this committee. We will also answer questions this evening after the presentation. So maybe we could go to the next slide, Umesh. Okay, so Extel began construction on this building last week, on May 23rd. We started excavation, which we followed by the building foundation. This will take until approximately the end of the year. And construction from the ground up and our superstructure will take about 2 years. Our construction manager, Lindsey, is one of the largest in the United States. They have done much work in the CB8 neighborhoods. They are here tonight, as are several other members of our team, to address any relevant questions at the end of the presentation. We are proud to have HSS as our anchor tenant. The recognized world leader in musculoskeletal health, Michael Rowling, Senior Vice President, Facilities, Construction, and Support Services, will present their mission, goals, and plans. We will after hear from Phil Habib from Phil Habib and Associates, who's our civil engineering and transportation consultant on this project. So let me tell you a little bit about the project first. So the project, as we heard, is on First Avenue between East 79th Street and East 80th Street. We have 100 feet of frontages on 79th and 80th Street, and a little bit over 200 feet of frontage on the eastern side of First Avenue. Our proposed building is 382,984 gross square foot. It's predominantly going to be medical office space with some ground floor retail. We may have some retail in the cellar. The main pedestrian entrances to the building are located on First Avenue. and there will be an HSS exclusive pickup and drop-off area for ambulances and taxis provided internally, which will be attended. That drop-off and pickup area will be accessed via 80th Street. I would like to hand it off now to Michael Rawlings from HSS, who will tell us a little bit more about HSS and their project.
Thank you. If you could just go back one slide, I would appreciate it. Oh, I'm sorry. Next slide. So those of you who are not familiar with HSS, Hospital for Special Surgery has been ranked #1 orthopedic hospital in the United States for the last 12 years, and #1 in the world the last 2 years. And so we're very proud of that. We continue to have a vision in leading in musculoskeletal health. Movement is critical to overall well-being, and HSS is helping people to live longer, healthier lives with high quality care. Our knowledge is our greatest asset, and as a trusted source of musculoskeletal expertise, it's imperative for HSS to share our knowledge with the world. And HSS is uniquely equipped to meet the needs of populations, and we are creating a musculoskeletal health ecosystem, scaling HSS influence and impact. Next slide, if you would. So we do provide a full spectrum of musculoskeletal care, and that starts with helping people with performance and wellness issues and prevention of injuries. We also specialize in the triage and care management, as well as providing physical therapy, helping those that do not need surgery to continue with their quality of life. We do provide non-operative care and treatment to those who need it, and we are a surgical center of excellence for those who do. We provide quite a bit of post-acute management and recovery, again, focusing on the patient's overall full spectrum musculoskeletal care, including rehabilitation. Next slide. So our footprint has been gradually expanding our geographic footprint, and HSS has facilities throughout the tri-state area, including HSS Stamford, HSS Westchester and White Plains, as well as HSS Paramus in New Jersey. And we have now opened a year and a half ago a HSS Florida in West Palm Beach. We also are spread across the 5 boroughs, including Queens and Brooklyn, as well as in Manhattan, Midtown, West Side, Hudson Yards, and we are expanding out in HSS Long Island as well too. So we have a number of ambulatory surgery centers, including here in Manhattan on the Upper East Side, where we have a inpatient, and then we also have ambulatory surgery centers on the West Side in Stamford, Connecticut, and West Palm Beach. We also have outpatient centers where we provide musculoskeletal care, including imaging in and around the tri-state area. Next slide. So we have a unique opportunity to expand our geographic footprint in our campus. You can see the main campus here, where the HSS main hospital is located along the FDR and on 70th and between 70th and 71st Street. We also have a new building which is going up over the FDR called the HSS Kellen Tower. This is under construction, and we expect to be opening this facility in 2025. We also have a research institute on 71st Street, as well as a pavilion building where we see a lot of outpatient musculoskeletal and orthopedic patients. We have a Center for Advanced Movement and Technologies on 73rd Street, and spine therapy on our 75th Street campus. This new facility, which will be on 79th and First Avenue, with our footprint at 80th, will help us to expand our geographic footprint. We will be occupying the first 8 floors of the building with services including physician offices. We will be doing a lot of our pre-surgical testing there, as well as radiology and imaging and physical therapy. Next slide. And this is just a rendering of the building, which again will have entrances off of First Avenue and 79th Street. And the next slide. On the corner of 80th and First will be a internal drop-off and pickup area where folks will be able to arrive to the HSS at 80th Street location via private car or a service, and we'll able to have direct access from that internal drop-off area and pickup area to our lobby, which will also have an entrance off of First Avenue. This internal drop-off area will be manned with our security team to ensure the smooth operation as cars come down 80th Street and take a right. And now I'll turn it back over to Eli and his team to talk more about the site, as well as talk about some of the other issues that Craig and Chuck had brought up at our last meeting.
Thank you, Michael. I think from here, Bill Habib from Philabib and Associates will walk us through the rest of the presentation.
Thank you. Hi, Philip here. Just go back to this First Avenue frontage. We're on a full block, and the full block is entirely bus stops. But as indicated before, the main entry to the HSS for taxis and stuff like that is actually vehicles coming up First Avenue can drop off here, and it's kind of an ideal situation for the entire block. But it's a good framework for our next slide, which is a top-down view. Next slide. Yeah, where this is unique in terms of on the left side, 79th Street is a full bus stop for the M79. First Avenue is the M15, the entire block, and so it's probably one of the few places where we have full bus stops on the 2 frontages. So there's a fair amount of limitation, good and bad. One is you could never have in a bus stop an ambulatory drop-off area. That's one of the reasons why it's at 80th Street. And the other thing is that it's a really good transit accessible site, very unique for the Upper East Side, frankly. And not only that, but 1 block to the west is the 2nd Avenue subway. So it's got a good transit access, both bus and subway. And so we anticipate that that's one of the measures that will cause this location to be a little bit more active than a typical east of First Avenue location. However, as indicated, we're going to have an ambulatory drop-off on 80th Street, and this is for some taxis and ambulances are going to be dropping off and picking up here, because that's kind of what this is all about. So the first thing we want to try to respond to was you brought up the issue of there is no parking provided on the project site. This is an inventory that was done earlier this year. There were about 47 parking facilities within quarter-mile walk, and then about 20 of them within 2 blocks. Over 4,300 parking spaces, legal parking spaces, are in these 47 facilities. And when we did the utilization overnight, about a quarter of them were still available, 76% utilized. In the morning at 10 o'clock, when the first, demand for our site actually might show up, there's also 1,000 or more parking spaces and 1,500 in the afternoon. And so there's, because a lot of the area parking demands are residential based, some of the residents use their cars during the day and therefore create about 25% or so available. So this amount of space is huge in terms of available. And if you could look at your slide where our site is, across First Avenue, there's a garage, and across north of 80th Street, there's another garage, number 21. So they're right there, adjacent to the project site. There's also one on the north side. So there's a lot of parking, which I think that would be benefiting from some of the employees that come here, and a limited number of patients are going to come by car. Most of them are from the Manhattan area, so public taxis and ambulances are going to be one of the main modes of transportation. So we shouldn't really worry too much about parking needs for this particular facility. So the other item that is relevant here is that on 80th Street, which is where the ambulatory vehicles do come in, vehicles coming up First Avenue, taxis will drop off on First Avenue, most of them. But some of them are going to turn right and then go in to the driveway. To our east is the Cadman School, about a block. It's about 200 feet to the east of us. Is a pre-K through, it's an elementary school with about 200 kids, 190. And so that's one of the other transportation elements that I thought important to look at for our site. It's in addition to the ability, our transit access and our curb cuts. And so we went out and we did some data collection on 80th Street. And if you could go to our next slide. 80th Street, east of First Avenue, for those who are transportation committee, these volumes are pretty low. They're relatively low. In the morning, 78 vehicles an hour. It picks up a little bit in the midday, 159. So it's a lightly used cross street, if you will, in adjacent to us. And one of the reasons is, frankly, as you probably know, there are only 2 blocks left on 80th Street to our east, York Avenue and Eastern Avenue, and that the network ends. So that's one of the elements. However, we do have a decent number of pedestrians, 330, walking in front of along the sidewalk on 80th Street, and that is the preschool period, 8 to 9. The school actually starts at 8:30, 8 to 9, and midday not much going on, and then on when the school is out, much of the demand between 3 and 4, you get another pickup as well. So we looked a little bit about what can be done at our entry, even though it's ambulatory and some taxis and a few cars, but what can be done from a design point of view and from a transportation point of view to help with what is the sidewalk condition. And so we looked a little bit at things to improve. One of the things we wanted to do was the line of sight for the driver. Clearly, the line of sight to pedestrians in the sidewalk. That's the key element, right, for our point of view, because we do have vehicle-pedestrian conflict on the sidewalk. And then the outbound drivers, the drivers leaving our drop-off ambulatory area, the sight line would be obstructed by the building. And so we wanted to make that a little bit better. So we have some suggestions that the applicant seems to be going along with, where we're going to try to have pedestrians not have to walk right up against the building. Because once they're right up against the building, the driver exiting can't really see them. So we want to push them a little bit further into the sidewalk to improve the sight lines. And we want to also try to remove some parking to improve sight lines to pedestrians. And last, more important, we want to have a sidewalk illumination, making sure that, you know, during the winter, when the sun sets at 4:30 and there is activity still going on, that the sidewalk is well lit. And lastly, as is typical in some places, when a vehicle is about to exit, there is an audio alert coming out. So on the second slide, the next slide, that what I'd like to show is what we're anticipating trying to do here. Here is the driveway entry and exit. And so on what we want to try to do is to put a low planter level where it's just grass with curb, or maybe flowers or something, just to keep the kids and all pedestrians from walking against the building line. And so then we're going to push them out to at least 5-6 feet or more, so that when the driver is exiting, that their line of sight is a lot bigger, as you can see. And the other element that we wanted to try to do to improve the line of sight is to drivers coming in. And so for drivers coming in, they come across 80th Street, up First Avenue, turn right, or come eastbound on 80th Street and turn into the site. We would like for them not to have a restriction by having a car parked between the driveway and the pedestrian crosswalk. So that's really restricted. So we are planning to relocate the hydrant, which exists, it's an old hydrant. It's like about 200 years old. Hydrant from the north side, which is right up against the pedestrian crosswalk, and relocate it to this particular location, which also gives it a much better access for the fire department, but also it also opens up the sight line to all vehicles, to coming in, turning right into the driveway, being able to see everything on the sidewalk. So the idea here is to try to max out our sight lines for drivers exiting and for drivers entering. Because the absolute number of ambulatory care vehicles coming in and out is not that high, because we have that big First Avenue drop-off. So we want, for pedestrian planning purposes, this was our one of our focuses for improving the design of this location. So that's the two issues: parking, planning. With ample parking in the area, and for this one pedestrian corridor where a conflict will take place, and the school to the east, or about a block to the east, where we try our best to max out on the sidelines. So that's the two issues that we were dealing with. So, so Eli, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you very much for that presentation. Before we go to the public for questions, I just have a few clarifying questions I want to ask as a starting point. Do you mind going back to that rendering that you showed of the front entrance, please? All right, so this is the First Avenue side, correct?
Yeah, correct.
All right. Did I misunderstand you, or did you say that this would be a good location for drop-offs to take place?
Well, this for taxis, and this is a full block of M15 buses. Remember, the M15 bus used to be at the south end. I don't know if you remember the south end of the block, and then they did the bump out, and they moved the M15 to the bump out, but kept the local and express M15 for the entire block of First Avenue. We tried to see if there was anything that could be done, but they said that they want to leave it alone. And so we anticipate that we would have, not on the bump out side, but on the unbump out side, taxi drop-offs, which typically happen in all of Manhattan.
But
Remember, it's not a bus.
but that's a serious concern, because we should never have, ideally, pickups and drop-offs taking place at physical bus stops. We don't ever want to be blocking a bus stop. And I raised this at the earlier meeting, but one of the concerns that I had was, how do we ensure that anyone being dropped off will actually use your internal circular driveway and not the First Avenue side, where you're going to have bus activity taking place?
Well, I think that I'll argue with you a little bit. For a full block of Manhattan First Avenue on the entire side, I don't know that there are any locations where taxis do not drop off, because that will require the taxis to drop off on the other side, which in this particular case, if I remember right, maybe a bike lane. And so I'm not 100% sure that drop off on an entire block in the city is, I won't say normal, but
no,
normal.
but it's something we don't want to encourage, and especially given that I assume some of your clients are going to need extra time to be able to get in and out of vehicles. It would not be ideal.
So it is a conflict we want to avoid. Yeah, and that's why the drop off is there, and that's why the entry is on 80th Street with it has the ability to receive, as you can see, the taxis and the ambulatory cares. But we really look at it just to see what is typical situation. But for frontages like this, I think we have. I can't remember what the frequency of buses, once every 3 minutes or 3.5 minutes. And for an entire block, it may be better to have some drop-offs, but we will look at it for you and get a little bit of response if that is one of the objectives, is to restrict all patient drop-offs for the entire block.
Craig, maybe I can just interrupt as well too. So, we understand that we don't want our patients being dropped off on First Avenue. I think that this location serves HSS in many great ways, including the access to public transportation. I also wanted to make clear that, this isn't an urgent center where there's going to be ambulances. I think what we're talking about are, drop-offs at 80th Street for HSS, where it'll be covered. Patients will be able to take their time getting in and out of a motor vehicle. They will be able to enter the lobby directly from the drop-off. When we refer to an ambulette, I think we're thinking more of an accessoride. This is certainly not an emergency department or anything like that. So there's not going to be any ambulances with flashing lights or making noises. This will be a destination where patients are coming that have an appointment already scheduled, and we'll be notifying them that if they are arriving via public transportation, how to get here easily, and if they're taking a private car, on how to properly get dropped off and picked up. when coming to an appointment at HSS at 80th Street.
All right, thank you for that. Just a few other quick questions, then I'll take a pause and allow others to speak. The driveway itself, is that wide enough to accommodate two vehicles? So one vehicle to pass the other in the turnarounds?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. In terms of the parking in front of the site, do you know how many parking spaces are essentially going to be removed as a result of this? And do you have any other recommendations, because this is something we'll have to take up eventually as well, recommendations to any other parking regulation changes that would be necessary or ideal to support safety and vehicular flow and lack of and to avoid congestion in front of the building or near the building, and as well for drop off of and pickup of any deliveries that are taking place that may not be. I think you have a bay, but anywhere as any deliveries aside from that.
Well, as you can see, we have bus stops on all frontages. So we're not going to.
I'm talking about the 80th Street side.
Yeah, we're going to be at 80th Street. We'll probably have, if we try to put that hydrant where we'll create, remove parking there of 1.5 vehicles, 2 vehicles there, but we're creating the 2 vehicles on the other side. So that's a wash. I think so. The thing that we would be removing some parking would be for about maybe about 60 feet from the curb cut to the property line to the south, and the curb cut's about 20 feet. So about 4 vehicles, 4 passenger cars would be removed to create the curb cut to the drop off and the service area loading, which cannot be on any other frontages. So I would say 4 cars would be the net reduction in curbside parking.
And sorry, and where is the loading bay on here?
Well, the service entry is here, and so we're anticipating that 1 or 2 service vehicles will pull up and park between the curb cut and the property line. It's about 60 feet.
Okay, so we'll need to
to
address those parking regulation changes. And then the last question for now that I just want to pose is, in terms of creating the sight lines for safety purposes, are you going to? I think you were proposing the planters over there. Do those go into the public right of way, and would those require revocable consents in the future?
We would have a maintenance agreement requirement, and so what we're trying to do, obviously, is trying to have the pedestrian walk away from the building on the east, and so that to optimize the sight lines. And of course, you can see the distance between the front of the curb, the front of the car, and where the nearest pedestrian would be about 7 or 8 feet away. So the idea then is to try to do some green space there, not trees, obviously, green space there, and not have trees at the curb.
Right,
so
but it seems like you're going to need a revocable consent if you're going to be.
Yeah, we're probably going to need a revocable. Yes, we will.
Okay, that's why I wanted to just confirm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's fine.
All right. Thank you for those responses. So now let me just let's go to the public. So anyone who wishes to ask a question, please use again the raised hands, which you will find under the reactions button. The first speaker is Leah Hanlon. So if we could please unmute Leah.
Hi, thank you. I don't know where you got your data on parking spaces, but it is so out of the realm of reality that I'm guessing you just paid someone to make it up. Anyone in this neighborhood who ever has to park knows how long it takes to find a spot during the day. Frequently, it's more than an hour of circling around and around and around. And anyone knows how incredibly expensive and unaffordable our garages are because there just aren't enough spots. You're throwing hundreds of cars a day into our already inadequate neighborhood parking infrastructure, and you're not contributing a single spot. In fact, you're taking spots. There are already really scary disputes over street parking, and this is just going to cause more. And something really bad is going to wind up happening one of these days over it. And the more outrageous the garages are, the more people are just going to park on the street. So what, besides making up numbers and lying to us, do you propose to do about this problem?
Well, what I could do is I could send you the data that is publicly available so you can tell how much lies were being transmitted. How's that?
So Craig, it looks like
Yeah,
the next
I was
person you
gonna say-
have is a person named iPad2. But
Okay,
if
yeah.
you want to say something.
No, I thought, I didn't realize that, that Leah was muted again. Yeah, so iPad 2, if you can please identify yourself.
Yes, please announce your name as you start speaking, please.
Hi, my name is Jeff Mayer. Building that my wife and I live on is on the corner of 80th and East End on the south side. And we're wondering whether you've looked into the fact that, particularly in the mornings and afternoons, late afternoons, or anytime really, that route on 80th Street going east is a direct route for many cars going to access the FDR. And
Southbound.
we know, because we listen to the honking horns for hours at times, because that turn onto East End gets congested and everything gets backed up all the way up sometimes to York Avenue. Have you thought about the traffic flow that this facility is going to increase going across 80th Street for people trying to get to East End Avenue? That's my question.
Am I on? Yeah. We actually went out about a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and actually counted the cars on our block. And it's the numbers that we showed here in the morning rush hour, in the evening, 5 to 6 or 4 to 5. It's pretty light. And I think while East End Avenue is the T intersection and 100% of vehicles get there, have to either turn left or right, I think at First Avenue anyway, and 2 blocks from East End Avenue, I think many of the vehicles, the number of vehicles here appear to be relatively low. Well, we can send you the data we collected, because 79th Street is 1 block our south. And which is one of the unique situations, because we have 80th Street going eastbound, 79th Street going eastbound, and 78th Street going eastbound. There are 3 eastbound streets adjacent to each other. And so they all go where you're saying, all the way to East End Avenue. And then if they want to head on southbound on the FDR Drive, that's where they do it. So the numbers of vehicles that we see here are not, huge number, frankly, for the block just east of First Avenue. But I do understand your point about once you get through all the way to East End Avenue, and you try to turn right, there's a 1 block, because at East End Avenue, there is the end of the East 80th Street. So I think that the number of vehicles that come in, that drop off and pick up, right, here are probably mostly going to be taxis, all right? Because that's kind of what is happening here. So to the degree that a taxi gets dropped off, and they don't do it on First Avenue, but they do it in the drop-off area, they'll go down 80th Street and try to get back into the grid from York Avenue. I don't think any of them will go to the end of the grid system at East End and try to get on the FDR drive. That's not what is likely to happen. And depending on where those, some of the employees or some of the others who park their cars are located, then some of them may end up going off to the east to get on the FDR drive, whether or not their parking location is tied to 80th Street or tied to 79th Street or tied to 78th, which are all eastbound streets. It's just a good distribution of the Manhattan grid, especially going eastbound here. So I would not be concerned, frankly, about what happens at the corner of East End Avenue and 80th Street. Sorry for the long answer.
And I might just want to throw in there as well too is that again, this is an ambulatory is a outpatient center. We expect about 280 to 300 patients a day. The majority of them arriving either using public transportation or by taxi or livery service. And our hours of operation will be from 8 a.m. until generally by 4 or 4:30, most of our patients are all seen. So we don't see a tremendous amount of activity going into or out of that drop off on 80th and 1st during those late evening hours where you have the most vehicles per hour.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next, we have Jeff Mayer. Can we unmute Jeff, please?
I'm sorry, repeat the name you just said?
I think we just lost him. I think it
Oh,
was
okay.
Jeff Mayer, but I think he
That was the
just
person who was just speaking.
Oh, that was who was just speaking. I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, his name had changed. Okay. So next we have Dana Jacoby.
Dana, go ahead and unmute on your screen. Dana, look for a button to unmute on your screen. There you go.
Okay. I live on the corner of 79th Street and York Avenue. And within the last 5 years, what used to be a very quiet street, now during just the hours when you were busy, has so much traffic that it's not safe in air quality for me to open my windows, particularly having asthma. What you're talking about is going to add things that, well, first of all, will slow traffic down, so car exhaust will be heavier in addition to whatever additional vehicles there would be. What plans are you making to contribute to mitigating air quality? We're going to become like it is in the Bronx, where people with asthma and more young children, which there are a lot of in this neighborhood, are going to start to have respiratory problems that we don't have now.
Okay.
So air quality is, what will you do to contribute to reducing it?
Well,
I mean, HSS is very committed to the environment and sustainability. And, quite frankly, one of the reasons that this location was chosen is because of its access to public transportation.
Yeah, but you're going to have all those taxis sitting at York and 79th, turning left onto FDR Drive and sitting waiting for traffic lights and putting out exhaust. Around the building, there's greenery that can help absorb. I don't see anything on First Avenue that is green or environment friendly in front of the building. It's just sterile concrete.
Does anyone from HSS or Excel wish to respond to that, or should we go to the next speaker?
I mean, Craig, I think, HSS is doing everything that we can to, as far as sustainability and trying to, again, reduce our carbon footprint whenever possible. Again, this location is very convenient for public transportation, for those coming to HSS using, city buses, and the majority of our staff and the majority of our patients will probably be using public transportation.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you didn't have a direct response to
And,
her comment, but that's, if you don't, that's fine.
And we do a lot to support, green. I'm sure, what you're looking at are renderings. I'm sure that Extel will be working on a, plan to put greenery outside of the building. I know we're very interested in those, in having a beautiful entrance that's green and welcoming. So, we will be doing our part to help in that regard.
All right. The next speaker we have is Patty Cohen. Can we please unmute Patty?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I have two questions. One is, how many vehicular and pedestrian counts did you conduct? Because I live right on 79th and 1st. I have a car, which I drive on 80th and 1st to the FDR all the time. And your 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., you're saying you only counted 78 vehicles per hour. I find that really, really hard to believe. That it is bumper to bumper typically. So how many of those counts did you do?
Well, we could actually send you the video.
What?
We think this is video, ATR. We can send you the counts. It's a row 2 counts. That's it's there. And I mean, that's what it is. We do it by hour of day on a weekday, which is where I had to do it when the school was open, which is a Monday, not a weekend or Friday. And so this is what the row 2 counted. So we could send you the data for you to see about 15-minute increments of why, as you go across 80th Street, you have a lot of congestion, because frankly, I've been there and I have not seen a lot of congestion. That's why I'm listening carefully, and maybe we can go back out and do another look-see for you.
Well, I didn't hear what you said. How many of those counts did you do? Did you just do it one day?
No, we did a total of 5 days. 5 days. We can send it to you. We can send it to the committee.
You don't have to send it to me. I just want you to answer the question. You did it 5 days. Was it 5 days in a row? Was it 5 days in a row? So last week, you're saying?
Well, it was, I think, April. When was it? In April. April, when there was school day.
Uh-huh. So it was Monday to Friday?
Correct.
Monday to Friday in April.
Correct.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Again.
Let me ask you a question. Is a situation on 80th Street where you use it every day, I think congested more because of the drop-off of the kids in the morning, or is it volume related? What is your sense of what you saw?
First of all, let me just correct you. I don't use it every day, but at least 2 days a week. And I am between 1st and 2nd Avenue, so I'm not on the street where the school is. But I have to believe that the school, I just can't even believe that. I mean, with all that traffic, where there's a school, it's pre-kindergarten all the way up. It's just, I can't imagine that they're too excited about this. But anyway, that's for you guys to sort out. But I would just say that I would say that I am also one of those people who Leah had mentioned has to circle, and it's not just an hour, it can be up to 2 hours to circle the neighborhood. And I'm talking within like a 20 block radius. So all the way east, all the way west, all the way up to 86 and all the way down to 72nd, where I circle sometimes up to 2 hours to find a parking spot for the very reason that she just mentioned, which is you talk about all of these available parking spots. That's because they're so unaffordable. Nobody can park there.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Well,
So it's not like
well,
there's so many.
I think just so we can all be on the same page here, I think there is a distinction that is being made here between private lots and on-street parking, which we all know is very limited. And the reason that the meters are there on the avenues is to promote turnover. But even so, I think we all are aware of the situation, and it's I guess the question here is whether this is going to have a significant impact on parking availability or not. And that's for us to discuss today.
It seems to be pretty well. I mean, as a resident who does often try to find a parking spot. I mean, I am in that population, so I can tell you that this is going to make it significantly harder.
Right, but both facts could be correct. There could be availability in private lots, and there could be little availability on street. So I appreciate your comments and concerns. All right, so next we have Claire Campbell. Can we please unmute Claire?
Claire, you can go ahead and unmute. There
Yes.
you go.
Yes. Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Oh, good. Okay. Yes, I'm on my trusty cell phone. My computer is a little bit not so hot, but anyway, thank you for letting me present. I am a long-term resident of 437 East 80th Street, and there are quite a few valid concerns here. I'm a proud recipient of a new left knee from Dr. Gomo at HSS. So I'm familiar with the traffic patterns at your main campus near the East River between 70th and 71st. Most of the times when I went there, that's a single lane pass through at that main building. And most of the time the traffic extended all the way up to York Avenue. The exiting there is pretty easy, except for when the traffic exiting the FDR is fully blocking the block and the whole ingress through the building and egress is totally blocked up. Second of all, I really honor your position in the community and in the world. I am a huge fan, and I can't tell you how many additional patients you've gotten because I've referred them to you, including my mom. Third of all, I welcome all of the input. We want this to work. My concerns are that you're right about the school. There are Kedman School. There are a lot of pickups and drop-offs there. There's another institution on the block called the 80th Street Residence, which is a little bit farther east of the Kedman School. They are they have I forget the number of residents, but that's an elderly residence, and I can pretty much tell you that every day an ambulance comes in to the block and blocks the block for at least 45 minutes, either mostly taking out somebody who's died, okay? And what happens is the whole block fills up with traffic. I sent an email last night out to the community board. I was trying to give them a high sign about this. So that's something that's a real problem to the flowing of traffic on 80th Street. The third thing is that I don't contest numbers, but I'm a scientist. I know about statistics, and I know about frequency and time of day, season, etc. Okay, the fellow who lived on East End does have a valid point. You cannot take this in isolation. The traffic is, if your cars are going to be leaving on 80th Street, they are going to be coming east. They're going to run into the Kedman School and the 80th Street residents. You also run into they cannot turn on York because the D'Agostino is getting deliveries who double park. Then going down York, the traffic is blocked up all the way to the 59th Street Bridge due to entrances and exits all the way down there and construction. There are also two other high-rises built on the FDR at 74th Street. I think they're two medical buildings. This whole area is really, it's a gridlock pretty much of the day. So as I said, I'm a scientist, and in my 60s, I'm a senior citizen. I don't sound like it, and I don't look like it, thanks to you. But there really is a lot of problem. My other concern was moving that First Avenue bus stop. How are you going to have people coming, exiting, and entrancing with a bus right there? I think right now they even moved the bus up a block so that the construction vehicles can have access on First Avenue. My third concern is the way the exit was and the service entrance was described on 80th Street. You know, those vehicles will double park. They will block the block. And the other concern is that, you know, the lady with the asthma, I mean, I feel for her. I don't have asthma, but when you walk around these blocks, there's so many pedestrians, so many dog walkers, so many children, kids on scooters, old ladies in wheelchairs, old ladies on walkers. I mean, the density is just very high. The noise and the confusion and the honking, and as I say, I'm a huge fan of yours, and I want this to work, but I'm wondering if there's any way to change that exit to stop those cars from coming out to 80th. Can't you make a circular drive and have them enter on the south side of 80th or even on 79th and come through and exit onto First Avenue? So those are my main concerns. And, you know, I would love to, I'm retired. I would love to walk you around and show you all these things, because it's not just an HSS issue. But as I say, I want you to succeed, but you have to think of it in the context of the whole area. I don't have a car. I'm not worried about parking at all. That's not my concern. So those are my concerns. And I had contacted, we're in an old walk-up building. We're very middle income. We've been in rent stable. We're kind of poor, actually, when you look at it now with the inflation and the increased taxes. And, you know, we love our little neighborhood, and it's just so encroached upon. The other thing I thought of is that there's another teaching facility on the northeast corner of First Avenue and 80th, that there's a lot of foot traffic there too with those little kids. It's a phys ed gym or something, but there's a high foot traffic there too. So I hope you get the picture. We really love our neighborhood, and we're just so squeezed in so many ways, and we're just trying to get you to consider what I just spoke about.
All right, thank you very much, Claire.
First of all, Ms. Campbell, I just wanted to thank you for your plug of HSS. We're very happy that you chose us to have your musculoskeletal care. Second is you described the HSS main hospital, where we do, you know, a lot of our surgical procedures, which obviously takes quite a bit of time getting people in and out of motor vehicles after they've had surgery. This is an outpatient center, primarily, you know, treating a lot of patients, seeing patients who are going to be coming for surgery, doing pre-surgical screening, and then also, you know, providing physical therapy and rehab to patients who have had surgery and who are getting better. You know, one of the things that we're very proud of is that, and we've discussed it here, is that this is going to be a manned drop-off, meaning that there will be someone while this drop-off and pickup is operating out there, helping to direct traffic and ensure the safety of the community at 80th and First Avenue. So those are things that I think are important to take into consideration, that we've thought of in ensuring that that we keep the public safe.
All right, thank you. And next, I think our final speaker from the public is Andrew Ravisher. Can we please unmute Andrew?
Hi, thank you for letting me speak, and I'm honored that I'm closing out the public portion of this session. And thank you so much for presenting your plans for us. And HSS is a really beloved part of our neighborhood, and medical services are needed. So we're fans of yours, and I speak as a fan of yours. I'm really happy that you brought up being a sustainable neighbor, because people have brought up the really excellent point about increased traffic and air quality, and climate change pollution is also a significant factor that's affecting our neighborhood and is affecting our city. And so you talked about sustainable measures, and I'm wondering if you could give me a few specifics on how you're building sustainably, and then also how the building itself will be sustainable in its operations. Because, for example, Forbes magazine in the last 7 years and other publications and studies out of Carnegie Mellon showed that LEED certification, for example, is not actually helping in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. It might seem nice, but it's not making a big difference. We've had a building in Midtown, the Bank of America building. The new tower was supposed to be LEED certified and really excellent for the climate, but because of its energy usage, it's actually a horrible polluter, and it's facing possibly millions of dollars in fines under Local Law 97, which, for those of you who are not familiar, it was a law passed in 2019, and it calls for a 40% reduction in citywide greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and 80% by 2050. And that law is being challenged by a whole bunch of co-ops and condos in the city who don't want it enforced. And so I know that, one of your facilities is right on the FDR. I think you remember how flooded it got after Superstorm Sandy. I mean, I remember the day before people were kayaking on the FDR because it got that flooded. We are a vulnerable community because of the East River nearby. And I know that you want to be good neighbors. So how are you not going to exacerbate the horrible climate change crisis that we're having, both in terms of your construction and in terms of your daily operations once your building is up? Thank you.
Does anyone wish to respond to that? I know it's not necessarily a transportation question, but.
Sure, I'd love to talk about that. So, New York City has really taken the lead in trying to enact, sustainable and reducing our carbon footprint. And HSS has recently just onboarded a new director of sustainability and infrastructure. We have been working very closely with XDEL. We've onboarded a world-renowned mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineer to design the systems that will serve the HSS portion of the building at very efficient ways. That said, I think we're all trying to do our best to reduce our carbon footprint and make it a better world for our children in the future, as well as current. But one of the things that we're doing in the new HSS Kellen Tower is by building a green roof, which obviously will help to reduce carbon footprint, and by constantly updating our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems to be most efficient, including using heat recovery systems. So this is a state-of-the-art building that is being designed by XDEL, of which HSS is looking forward to opening a new facility in this area to provide care for our patients. But the real questions is what are our public utility companies doing to help create energy and electricity and doing it in a more efficient manner. So thank you for your comments, Andrew.
And thank you for that. And I believe we do have one of the chairs of the Environment Committee here. And if you wish to discuss this further with them, you're more than welcome to. So at this point, seems like we do have one more member of the public who just raised their hand. And then I do want to get to board members. Maggie Lehman.
Thank you. I'm Maggie Lehman. Thank you for that. I'm also concerned about the specifically dedicated drop-off on First Avenue in the bus lane. I know, Craig, thank you, talked about that extensively. I confess I'm not sure where it came out at the end of Craig's questions for you. What I don't think has been mentioned is that First Avenue is a throughway for trucks of every kind, supermarket trucks, construction trucks, delivery trucks. It is a throughway. It's not an occasional 3 trucks an hour. It is all one entire lane, 2 entire lanes at any random time of the day, Monday through Friday, is 90% truck traffic, less cars. I bring that up because the heavy traffic and the dangerous nature of the trucks causing, as Craig said, bus delays in the bus lane, or what we all see, buses going around that in the drop-off is very, very concerning. There are also, each and every morning and afternoon, many, many school buses that both pick up and drop off on that block of First Avenue between 79th and 80th. To add a dedicated drop-off seems to me both dangerous and perhaps unnecessary, as opposed to just allowing a car, taxi or private car or other car service, which isn't going to be using the ramp on 80th, to drop off where it can, which is what taxis and other cars do all over this city. I think, as someone mentioned, maybe Craig, as someone mentioned, having the dedicated one anyway doesn't confirm that they will use it. So I'm asking you to reconsider that, given this more detailed description, and perhaps go out again. Last comment with respect to the greenery and the trees, there are now already several trees on First Avenue, living trees, several on 80th, and I think one on 79th. I'm hoping those will be preserved, and in addition, I was pleased to hear about your greenery. But I'd like to know and hear from you if indeed you will preserve the existing trees. The development on 79th Street and First next to Citibank, that developer ripped away about 6 trees, saying they would replant, which they did, and those trees some 5 years later are all about 3 feet high. We'd like to not see that happen here. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Michael, did you want to respond to her questions?
No, I think I'm good, thanks.
Okay. All right, so then let's move on to our...
Craig,
Yes?
This is Chuck. I just want to make a couple of announcements. I know if we, in the beginning of the meeting, I don't know if we recognize that we have a new public member, Stephanie.
I was just about to do that and recognize new members.
Yeah, we'd like to welcome Stephanie. Just been recently appointed. And I just want to make one comment having nothing to do with the substance, but I think that our committee is known for allowing the public to participate, that we like to have the public participate, and we're pretty lenient about letting people talk. But one thing that we insist on is that any presenters be treated with respect. And something well, I haven't spoken and I won't speak on the, but I did hear, and that's something that can't happen at our committee, where someone is being accused of lying or whatever it is. You can take issue, but we don't do that here at this committee. So I just want the members of the public to keep that in mind. If otherwise, you're not going to be recognized in the future.
Yes, thank you for saying that, Chuck. I was actually going to make the same comments. I was just holding off, but for those of you who are not familiar with CB8 rules and bylaws, we have pass decorum clauses, and that does extend to both board members and members of the public. So we want to make sure that we treat everyone with respect, whether it be board members or presenters or agency representatives or elected official representatives. So we just ask for your cooperation and respect with that. Thank you very much. So as I was saying, I want to welcome all the new, not only Stephanie Reckler, our new public member of this committee, but all the new board members who were just appointed to Community Board 8. And our first speaker is one of them. That's Lindsey Cormack.
Hello. Thank you. This has been really informative, and it's also quite interesting to me. I live on 80th in between 1st and 2nd Avenue, and I have a daughter who went to Cadman for a period of time, so I'm really intimately aware of what this sort of street kind of traffic patterns look like, both pedestrian and in cars. And the thing that concerns me is it seems like if we're going to have cars coming on first and dropping off that are then going to want to turn right to maybe go to FDR or something over there, but we also have cars coming down 80th to go into this circular drive, it seems like it's inevitable that this corner is just going to get blocked up. And I say this with the concern of both the pedestrians and people who are driving, but also with a lot of love for HSS. I too rehabbed a knee for 17 months there, so I do like the services that they're doing. But I question what this corner is going to look like for us, both on foot and in cars.
Great. Thank you very much, Lindsey, for those comments.
Thank you. Craig, could I just make a clarification? It's
Sure.
Eli Cupsale from Excel.
Of
So
course.
I mean, there seems to be a little bit of a misunderstanding, and I think Philip should maybe get back this a little bit. We don't intend on having any designated drop-off area for taxis on First Avenue. I think what he was saying was that obviously that will happen to a certain extent. The intent here is to have, when we have the drop-off, is actually to get cars and vehicles off of the avenues, out of the streets and into the drop-off. And as Michael had said, there will be attendants who will try to, make sure that cars keep on moving. But we do not intend on having any designated drop-off on First Avenue for taxis or anything like that.
Yeah, thank you for
If
that.
I may, it also seems to me that an additional question I have is, when we were talking about deliveries, I imagine for a facility that's doing as many things as this facility is going to be doing, there's going to be tons of deliveries, not just for like workers who are eating, but for all the sorts of supplies that'll be dropped off all the time. Where is it that these things are meant to be? Like, where are the cars that are dropping that off meant to park?
So maybe I can speak a little bit about that. Earlier during our presentation, we showed a great deal of facilities within Manhattan that are HSS. And so we actually have just created a warehouse facility on 74th Street where we will be bulk buying and purchasing all of our medical surgical supplies. And so, we anticipate making deliveries, getting large deliveries there to that facility. And then as needed, we'll be doing a, just in time, one daily drop off from that facility to HSS at 80th Street, which will significantly reduce the number of deliveries being made to the HSS portion of this development.
Okay, so you didn't anticipate trucks idling, getting ready to unload linens or whatever sorts of supplies would be necessary?
No, not at all.
Okay.
In fact, we imagine taking a lot of those deliveries using our drop-off in small vans that are operated by HSF staff.
All right, and just following up on that, will deliveries of any materials be coordinated to prevent any queuing or multiple vehicles alongside the street near the service entrance at a time?
Again, HSS will be controlling who is gaining access to and from the drop-off. It'll be fully manned during operating hours.
Right, but any activities that take place on the curbside, will the scheduling of any drop-offs be coordinated or to ensure that you're not going to have multiple vehicles queuing at a time and creating a double parking situation?
Yeah.
I'm sure that will be handled by the landlord who will be running that facility, that area.
Okay.
And we will consider that.
Okay, thank you. All right, next we have Michelle Birnbaum.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Excel and Special Surgery, for being here. This is an as-of-right building. So I'm sure the whole committee and the public appreciates you being here to address some of these concerns. I'll ask you a couple of questions about the 80th Street side and then a couple about First Avenue. On 80th Street, I'll just pick up where you left off just to clarify. At that loading dock, one of my questions was going to be, did you need parking spaces released opposite the loading dock on 80th Street in order to allow for trucks to back in and have a turning radius there? Or did your answer to a question about it mean that you have such small trucks that they can front in or back into loading docks without needing the extra space? You understand what I mean? In other words, opposite a loading dock, in order to have big trucks backing into it, you often have to eliminate parking opposite that loading dock to allow for a truck to back in.
Yeah, so I don't believe this is a loading dock that's being planned. This is not where trucks are going to be backing in and out of. Am I correct, Eli?
Yes, thank you. So we won't have to lose any parking spots across from the loading area. It's a service entrance. We will, it's not a loading dock.
Okay, that's good.
So there isn't
we don't have to lose any of that.
Trucks will be pulling into.
Okay, that's great. On First Avenue, we're looking at that whole frontage, including the bus bump out. Are we to assume from this that that entire block is actually a bus stop at some kind of MTA facility?
It currently is.
So my question is this: why can't we have the bus stop on the south portion of the building, eliminate the bump out to give more traffic lane space, and then have not necessarily designated, but then have the opportunity for cars for hire or taxis to drop off in front of that front entrance without interfering with the buses? I can't imagine it's about 200 feet that it often is occupied by 5 buses? I mean, most bus stops are only about a half a block. Why can't the lollipop be halfway between 79th and 80th and have the rest of the street just a normal drop-off place without designation for accessorized taxis or cars for hire?
Michelle, I can answer that question in part, and then I'll let them further elaborate. But generally, the MTA has created the bump outs, the bus bulbs for the select bus service stops in order to allow them to be able to allow for boarding and alighting to occur more quickly, because that way the bus doesn't have to actually pull into a space. So they have made the point of separating the local bus stop from the select bus service stop. And that's why up until the stops are relocated, the local stop is on the south side where you have the additional parking lane, essentially, which is the bus stop. And then you have the bus bulb on the northern side of the block where the select bus service is. I don't believe that is, I believe that would be a non-starter for New York City Transit to allow something like that. What I don't know is if they need the entire block, or if there is any space for a single spot in the middle of that block. But again, I don't know if that would actually inhibit the ability for buses to be able to pull in and pull out with ease. And I don't know whether that would be feasible or not either. If anyone from Excel or HSS wants to comment further on that, if you've had any discussions or asked those questions, but I know just as a bus planner that that's the New York City Transit approach.
I remember this being on the overall plan. I'm not sure those bump outs have worked in exactly the same way they had originally intended. And in this situation, it is such an unusual one that I don't think that that's a protocol that they necessarily have to maintain for this block. And yet they can still have stops that would accommodate both the local and the express. The boarding pass dispensers are not even indicated on this. And if the express bus was to be at the bump out, those boarding kiosks would have to be in front or line that area in front of the entrance. So I don't think that's a particularly good plan. I think in this particular case, and we do have to make exceptions when exceptional things are happening, I think that the kiosks should be towards the southern end and both the local and the express buses can stop there, eliminate the bump out to widen that lane. And also my next question is there a plan to have an attendant at this entrance on First Avenue as well as one in the circular driveway? I understand that, but how about here on First? Plan for an attendant? And my last question is what's in the rest of the building? Or what's your plan for the rest of the building?
So as far as an attendant at the entrance on First Avenue, that will be automatic doors that are ADA accessible. Patients will be able to come in and they will be greeted by our registration staff, where they will be then registered and go to vertical transportation to their appointment, back down again, and either to the drop off to be picked up or back out to First Avenue to take public transportation.
So I would just like to suggest that while you may not have a protocol like that in place now, to keep an open mind that if you do see that the drop-offs or the pickups are becoming congested and that passengers might need help to expedite getting out of a car into a car in order to keep things moving, that if you experientially find that that's the case, that you reserve an open mind about putting a street attendant there should you have need. And then my last question is about who's in the rest of the building, or who do you hope to be in the rest of the building? Is it apartments? Is it medical? Is it office? What is it?
So I could address that. And the rest of the building is going to be ambulatory care facility, some more medical office type of space similar to the hospital specialist surgery use. I mean, we'll have some ground floor retail, maybe some retail in the cellar, but the rest of the building above the ground floor, which would be, the 9th floor and above, the intent is to be an ambulatory care facility, but we don't have any tenants.
So, but it won't necessarily be a special surgery. It could be any medical facility, but that's your plan?
Yes.
And what's the total?
It will not be. It will not be apartment. It will not be apartments.
It will not be what? Sorry.
Apartments. Sorry.
Oh, not be apartments. Okay. What's the total feet in height of this building?
It's about 385 feet. The top occupiable floor is 385 feet.
So it's the equivalent of about an 80.
And we discussed zoning at a different meeting. This is about traffic.
Okay. Yes,
just reminding everyone.
So it's about a 38-foot building. Just wanted to clarify what it was, but that you will not be the tenants above your designated floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Next we have Marco.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Let me start saying one thing. It's clearly that as until right now, you are saying that you build as a right of development. So you shouldn't even be right here. I agree with that part completely. Also, I'm not against the medical facility. I think it's a good quality, an excellent facility, but this is not the only place that they can find out a good home for their service. But again, I'm not questioning the service at all. But the point is, I'm gonna address 2 points. One, construction, and one, transportation. Let me go the easiest one, the construction part. I saw that you put some plastic fence on 79th Street. And then you put a sloppy ramp with a drain that is higher than the level of the road. So the pipe that is supposed to go under the sloppy ramp doesn't work. And today I was walking by there and I came, it was raining. And I saw that the water is holding on the road. It's not your problems. That is not your problems. But if you want to do something for the community, you should level and give the right page to the right direction and resolve this matter. Now, when I said the sloppy ramp, you put in a curve that very complicated part. I'm a church goer too. So many people from my church, they use right there is the elevator for them. So those people have to negotiate this sloppy ramp in order to get. It's almost impossible. You can create a serious accident over there and a very hazard condition for their, especially for the senior. And by the way, our community have many senior citizens. So you have to be concerned with that part. So I think that is my point about construction. Now, let me go to the transportation issues. As I said before, you can build without being right here. And by the way, can you put me the graphic of the building? And so I'm gonna make different statements. So the issue will go directly if it's a good neighbor or a not good neighbor. So a good neighbor, it should have an independent study of the traffic, because a not good neighbor is challenging those people that we live right here. I walk every single day in that area. I know what it is. So I know what is the parking problems. If you has been in our community, the parking places, even these guys, what they do is even they park even in the sidewalk. So because it's full inside. I don't know where you're coming with these ideas, with this information, but I consider that is not good neighbor to provide this kind of information. A good neighbor should be not remove parking, because we need parking. We need solutions of parking. So if you don't provide good solution of parking, you are not a good neighbor. We need to, you are not going to produce a passive building or net zero building. That should be a good neighbor. No good neighbor, it should be saying that you're gonna bring the best mechanical engineer. Probably you bring even from NASA, that's no problem. Because the problem is not the calculations. The problem is the design. The problem is the loads that you use. You use and abuse excessively when you use raw materials. And if you see the picture that you presented of First Avenue, it's full of glass. Glass is the worst material that you can put on the facade. Therefore, the loads increase dramatically. When they increase dramatically the loads, then obviously you have more carbon emissions, poor quality of the environment. That's what you're doing. That's what I said, no good neighbor. A good neighbor's.
Right, I'm sorry, Marco, do you have any questions?
No, I'm doing my statement, and that's it, because everything is as of right.
All right, but I think,
So I can make my statement and that's it. I'm almost finished.
but we're not debating the merits of the project. I think we're trying to address the transportation issues, not just comment on.
Right now, I'm addressing, and when I accuse that is no good neighbor, he has to say something.
So will you let him have a chance to respond? I think.
No, I'm going to put all of them because they later I probably won't have a chance to keep asking questions. So the other one is to move. A good neighbor is
Please start wrapping up your comments. I think we need to move on to other speakers.
Okay. Yes. A good neighbor should be do not remove the fire hydrant. A no good neighbor should be that at the time when you remove a hydrant, you impact negatively the other buildings that are far away from that, because a hydrant has to be within 200 feet. And the last two, the drop off on the First Avenue. On the First Avenue, you wanna combine the taxis along with the select service and the local service. There are two bus stops right there, so it cannot fit any other car. And finally, what I would like to say is, you don't preserve absolutely no parking, and the contrary, you remove. That will be a no good neighbor. So then so far I cannot say anything about that, but I will be very anxious to see when you're coming for the revocable consent, because at that time, then we have an opinion, and then we have a right to say something. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Marco. Does anyone wish to respond from Extel or HSS?
No comments.
Okay. All right, then if there are no comments, then let's move on to Rita Popper, please.
Hi, I happen to be a very big proponent of HSS, as I am living proof that it works. And thank you for keeping me in working order. I do want you to know that after years and years of being patient, and then of course every patient becomes an outpatient, that I do want you to try to understand that most of the patients who come to HSS, whether it's for x-rays or they're not going there for a flu shot, is that it takes them a while to get out of a car, get out of an accessorized bus. They have walkers, they have wheelchairs, or they are looking for a wheelchair to be supplied by HSS, as you do at the main entrance down by the river. So there are a few things, and the one thing I am begging you not to do is split up the local bus service and the select bus service. They have done that down, and I think Greg has been, when we came home from Memorial Sloan Kettering a few nights on First Avenue at 67th Street, that on 67th Street on the south side, southeast corner, it's the local, and on the northeast corner, it is the express. However, you are running back and forth, because if you're waiting, like for 20 minutes at night and it's snowing, you really want to get on the bus that's going to take you where you want to go. So running back and forth was really dangerous. And I, again, also think that you are going to need help for passengers on the First Avenue side. People coming in are scared, they're afraid of falling, they're afraid of everything. I just want you to know, I think you're going to do a great job, but you really have to be prepared. And thank you for keeping me together. I have been a frequent flyer, at HSS, and it has been a wonderful flight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Popper. And we are greatly committed to the safety of the community and to our patients. That is patient-centered care is what we specialize in. And we will certainly take your recommendations into consideration.
One more that I forgot is the only crosstown street that does not have an express stop is 72nd Street. And it doesn't have it on First Avenue, and it doesn't have it on Second Avenue. And if you are more interested in getting people to take buses, if we make it more convenient for them, they will take the bus. So, and our buses, take a while. They have to put down your ramps or whatever. But I know that bus stops are not your bailiwick, but I know that your input means a lot to the DOT. I am asking if you would please get them to reconsider an express bus stop on First Avenue and Second Avenue. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rita. Next, we have Billy Freelands.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you to HSS for being here. Given the hour, I'm going to try and keep this short. My first question was, can you tell us how much conversation you've had with the Cadman School, and also how regularly you're speaking with the transportation agencies about the bus stops on First Avenue?
Hi. So we've had some conversations with the Cadman School and addressed their concerns. They had some concerns during construction and with trucks using the 80th Street, going in and out on 80th Street. We also have tried to address their concerns regarding pedestrian safety with the drop-off and pickup on 80th Street as much as possible. Regarding the bus stops, I mean, those have been moved now. I mean, those are not really in our purview. That's DOT and MTA. We are coordinating that with them, but that's not our department to comment on.
Okay, yeah, I would just say I hope you'll continue this conversation with Cadman and maybe keep us posted if you don't mind. And I just do echo Craig's and others' concerns about the effect of having some sort of drop off. I know you're not planning to have an official drop off of sorts, but this conversation reminds me of our past conversations with HSS around the 72nd Street and the cul-de-sac and traffic issues. And I just hope for HSS you'll continue to be a partner with us in figuring out how we can mitigate any traffic concerns that crop up. And it's been suggested by other members of this board that you have somebody out there making sure that whatever drop-offs are happening quickly. I thought I might have heard you say that there will be somebody present during operational hours, but it would be great to confirm that and to continue being in dialogue with you on that, Michael. And just to get to my last question, we talked a lot about parking. I have a question about bike parking. I imagine many of your employees at HSS are going to be interested in biking to work. I noted that the nearest city bike stations are on 81st and York, and then the other one close by is First Avenue between 77th and 78th. So I'm just curious whether you've contemplated any bike parking, whether of your own volition or working with Lyft and City Bike to install either more stations or bring a station closer to your site. Thank you.
We do have a lot of staff that commute, via City Bike and, public transportation. We'll certainly look into that. If necessary, there may be, some space in the drop off for need if needed. But bottom line is anything that we can do to provide, safer transportation to and from work for our staff and for our patients, we'll look to do.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Eli.
Thank you, Billy. Next, we have Paul Kirkler.
Thank you. I just want to say, first of all, thank you to Chuck and Craig for keeping this meeting both civil and on track. I just think it's important we carry on like that. So thank you, gents, for doing that. The way I look at this, this wonderful idea of having this loading, unloading of patients under the building is totally a positive idea, a good idea. All I can imagine is if you didn't have something like this, you'd have tons and tons of people arriving on First Avenue and causing huge amounts of congestion. Maybe I'm looking at this wrong, but it just seems like this is a great thing that we're not going to have that. And also, if we think about the kinds of people arriving or people arriving with kinds of conditions they have, oftentimes it's going to be hard to walk, and getting out on a ferociously busy First Avenue isn't fun at the best of times. So that's my way of saying I think it's a great thing. I wish we had more like this. One tiny question for you, just to remind me of some numbers. How many car parking spaces are being lost because of this? And what was the total number you gave for a certain neighborhood? Just looking for a percentage there, please. And thanks again.
Thank you very much, Paul, for those nice comments. Philip, do you want to address the parking?
Yeah, I can. I mean, the number of parking spaces, we have 100-foot frontage on 80th Street. And so, that's probably around 5 parking spaces currently there. And so what we're trying to do is to bring, to relocate, to eliminate the 5 spaces, but transfer 1 or 2 of them to the north side of 80th Street because we're relocating the hydrant to the south side. And so I would say either a net loss of 3 or 4 at most parking spaces.
Anton, you gave a number of some big number for some kind of defined neighborhood total to show that it was a small number. Can you remind me of that number, please?
Sorry?
I thought you'd given some sort of number. Maybe
are we talking about curbside spaces or off-street spaces?
Oh, maybe I misheard. Maybe you were talking only about off-street. I was hoping you might have total available curbside, but if you don't worry. It's a small number, basically, is what I'm trying to get to. We're not losing a massive part of parking in the area.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Next, we have Barbara Rutter. Will, can you unmute Barbara, please?
Yeah, she's
Oh,
she
no.
can do it.
Okay.
There we go.
I didn't say it before. A couple of things. Thank you. I will add my thanks also. I was going, I had thought about the bus stops before it was mentioned before. I would just like to say that I take that bus and it's not only SBS and local, but you often see more than one bus and sometimes they can't go to the curb and so on. So I hope that's taken into consideration. I also can't picture it. Where is the bus lane? I'm sorry, not bus lane, the bike lane.
Bike lane's on the other side of the streets.
It's not on that side? Okay, then I will stop that. I do have a comment about the other tenants. You don't have other tenants yet, and yet it seems like the design and the flow of traffic is specifically for special surgery. What's going to happen if you are getting another medical place that needs more deliveries and so on? Where will it go? Will they need more parking spots? I think there's a separate entrance, if I'm not mistaken, from last time. How will that affect it? We're only talking about special surgery because we don't know what else is going to be there. But there's going to be a large number of people added and cars and so on added when you eventually fill up the place, I assume. Am I right?
I can't talk about how many exactly will be added, but there will be, you know, when we fill up the place eventually, God willing, there will be additional, you know, people coming to the site. That pickup and drop off is going to be HSS exclusive on 80th Avenue. So other people accessing the site and coming to the facility would, you know, be getting dropped off. You know, most of them presumably would be using public transit, which is why we chose, you know, a big part of why we chose this site, because of its, you know, it's very transit oriented with the buses on First Avenue, 79th Street, and the nearby subway station.
Well, the subway station isn't that nearby, and if you have a bad back or whatever, but I guess we would have to readdress it. What about in terms of deliveries? You have one place for HSS. Where would other deliveries go? Have you considered that other tenants will need deliveries also? So there's that place on 80th Street is where the deliveries will be for the full building. That's not just the deliveries will not be exclusive for HSS on 80th. Right now, you're saying because of how HSS has the separate building for basically storage, it wouldn't necessarily be true if your other tenant or tenants, you may have many other tenants filling up the building. Am I right? You may have smaller and numerous tenants filling up the other building. Am I correct about that? And yeah, those are all possibilities. You are correct. And they may need bigger trucks to deliver and so on, that you may have to readdress the transportation. Is that true? I don't know what you mean by readdress the transportation. Well, right they'll be you're correct at that. I can't say that they'll be using the same you know, warehousing strategy as HSS is using. Okay, thank you. I'm just going to say that Craig made a comment about the environment co-chair is on, that's me. I would love if you join a committee, not for us to question or combat what you're doing, but to get ideas about what can be done. So maybe I'll speak to Will and he'll give me, if I may, I'm Barbara Rutter, and if I may call some contact that Will tell me about, I would love it, if that's okay. I would love to hear some of your ideas of what you do with sustainability and so on. Is that okay? Is there an answer to that or not necessarily? Yeah. Okay. Great, thanks. Yeah. Okay, that's what I have.
Thank you, Barbara. And just building off of, before we go to cause, a couple of related questions. What percentage of space is going to be HSS space versus the other non-HSS uses or tenants?
So it's about 50%, HSS is about 50% of the space.
Okay, so theoretically there is any numbers that you've provided us in terms of people utilizing the building, coming in for appointments and stuff, could essentially be doubled if other offices are generating the same amount of visitors, correct? Well, potentially. I mean, not for the drop-off, obviously, because the drop-off was exclusive to HSS, the pickup and drop-off area. And there are, you know, although it has the community facility, that, you know, we don't have any idea yet of what the other tenants are going to look like. There, as you can see from the rendering that we had, you know, we don't have that much more space. Kind of like a different type of use that would probably go in the tower portion of the building, which is, you know, once the building's fully set back, then the HSS use. And, you know, but it's hard to say now, you know, exactly what. Okay, you know, I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back to that. I don't want to jump over, get in the way of Kaz asking his questions before I have a few questions, and then we go to anyone who hasn't spoken yet. But I do want to return to that point. So Kaz, why don't you go ahead right now?
Yeah, during construction, how much of street will you be taking for staging of trucks and material and that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question, please?
During construction, how much of the street, 79, First Avenue and 80, will you be taking to put your trucks, your material and blockade the traffic lanes?
Scott, we have Scott Weisberg from Lend-Lease, who's our construction manager. Scott, would you be able to answer this question?
Hi. Thanks. Yeah, I was trying to unmute. That's the reason for the delay. So we are currently we're taking the parking lane right now, and that's where the pedestrians are going to be directed to on all three frontages. And then as if you've seen the fence go up the past week, it encompasses the sidewalk. And that'll be similar for the superstructure operation that Eli alluded to earlier. Only difference is on some frontages, the overhead pedestrian or the pedestrian bridge will be on the sidewalk, and we will have the first lane for our materials. So that's all we'll be taking is the current parking lane.
So that's about 400 feet of street that you will be taking.
Correct.
Okay. This question is for HSS. Once this building becomes operational, your employees, what is the guarantee? I guess there won't be any guarantee, but what happens to the parking spaces in the garages if the employees take a monthly basis rather than an hourly basis in the garages?
So we do not provide parking for our staff. We may look to do so, but at this particular time, the majority of our staff that commute use public transportation.
Okay, so if somebody drives in and they take a parking space in a garage on a monthly basis, it would be a lot cheaper for them to do that rather than pay for 2, 3, 4 hours of parking.
Yeah, I agree. And more than likely, they would not have the ability to go out to the street to do public parking and pay for, hourly parking every hour you have to feed the meter, or every 2 hours.
Yeah.
So that would be pretty much impossible.
So eventually the local residents around here could be losing spots in garages if they have one. Okay. That's for the future. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kaz. Just building off of the question that Kaz asked, how many employees do you anticipate, at least on the HSS side, staffing the building during its business hours?
So we anticipate the business hours Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Approximately 250 employees will be working at this facility, seeing up to 300 patients a day.
Okay, so you had mentioned earlier the number of patients you're expecting, but essentially double that to get a sense of the total number of bodies and potential people that would be arriving via various modes. But it does sound like, according to your transportation study, your parking study, that the community, and I'm not casting any opinions on this, but based on your findings, you're saying that there is enough parking to absorb all of the demand that may exist as a result of both patients and staff.
Yeah,
that correct?
And again, the majority of our staff do not drive back and forth to work.
Right. All right. I just want to return to the question regarding the non-HSS space. And I guess what I'm wondering here is, and this is the missing piece in my mind. If we are going to have half of the building that is not going to be using the pickup, the driveway, doesn't it seem rational that we will need to perhaps address other parking regulations nearby in order to accommodate loading and unloading, whether it be just parking regulation changes, loading zones, or neighborhood loading zones, or commercial loading zones, perhaps at certain hours to accommodate the activity by the loading bays. Would you agree that that may be needed and that we're going to have to revisit that in the future?
So, Craig, one of the things to understand is, go ahead, Eli. I'm sorry, please.
Yeah, this is more a question for Excel.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I mean, I wouldn't say, is it possible? Yes, sure. I mean, we don't have an idea yet of who that tenant's going to be in the future, and who's going to take the rest of the space. We do, as Philip said in his presentation, we have about 60 feet of frontage for the loading, that goes beyond, between that service entrance and the curb cut. So one would think that's, that space is designated as loading for the rest of the building, for the full building. It should be enough, but I guess it is a possibility depending on who the tenant, the other tenant or tenants are for the rest of the building.
Right. It would seem to me that either way, we're probably going to want to talk as the project gets closer to completion about Excel returning to just address any questions that arise between now and then, and trying to ensure that we're dealing with the unknowns at this point that may be more known at that point in regards to needs for parking change regulations and the revocable consents that are going to be necessary and things of that nature. So when is the building scheduled to be completed at this point, and when and inhabited?
So we anticipate substantial completion happening in the fourth quarter of 2024. Any tenants that will come in after that will need some time to fit out their space, which could take depending on the size of the tenant, something probably between 12, somewhere around 12 months to 18 months. So I would say hard to know, because I can't really tell you how the timetable for what the fit out is for the tenant, but I would say if fourth quarter 2024 we have substantial completion of the building, then probably not until fourth quarter 2025 or probably sometime into 2026 is when it'll actually start operation.
Okay, so we have a little time before we get to that point. Okay, thank you for that. Just a few other quick questions. One of our members who was unable to attend tonight wanted to ask what Excel is doing to mitigate rat disturbance during construction, and what HSS or Excel will do to mitigate rats around garbage disposal areas once the building is complete.
We could address that. I think, the project executive, Scott Weisberg, would you be able to address what Lend-Lease is doing now during construction and how we are exactly trying to mitigate that issue?
Sure. So we have a pest control company on board that's going to be doing, probably before the end of this week or early next week, a full initial round of putting in traps and pest control. And then at a minimum, they come every week to review the space and beyond that, if they have to come multiple times a week, they will do so, but it's monitored on at least a weekly basis on top of the initial that'll be done within a week's time.
All right, thank you. Do we have a liaison or point of contact that we could address any concerns during construction to, or should they go to the board office and get forwarded?
Well, we have our general super that's on site every day. Eli, I don't know if you want that correspondence to go directly through us, or if any issues directly through your construction team or not. But we have our superintendents on site every day, along with the security on site 24/7.
And we have our information line and email. I think that information is up on the site too. If there's something more that's needed, you could let us know. And then,
what site is that, please?
I'm sorry?
What is the?
No, I think it's on the site.
At the construction site. Okay.
Yes, and we've shared that before in the past presentation. We could circulate that too. I mean, that gets checked and monitored, daily throughout the. There's someone there that checks that we have a dedicated email and phone line for this.
Okay, great. And then the other question that she had was, is there going to be any hazardous waste disposal taking place?
So we've done all the soil sampling, and everything is going to be trucked out to the facilities that are accepting all of the soil. And as I don't know, and Eli or Michelle, if you have any specifics that you need to provide on that, but everything was done through the consultants for the soil testing. And
what about when the building is operational?
There is no hazardous material. That much I can tell you.
Okay, very good. All right, I think that is all from me for now. And again, I'll just remind you, I know it was requested by some speakers, but if you could just forward the data from the parking study, I think that would, I wouldn't mind taking a look at that. Now, I do see that there are two people from the public that haven't spoken yet, so let's go to them quickly, and then I think we will end this discussion. So we have, has Carol Schusterman spoken? I don't, she may have, I don't recall.
You. I would like to address something that I don't think anybody else has. Two things. One, ambulances and fire trucks have to be able to access First Avenue. And I live on 80th Street in First Avenue Owners Co-op, which is exactly across from where this project is going up. And I can tell you that many times there are trucks parked in the middle of First Avenue because the congestion is so bad. And ambulances and fire trucks have difficulty getting through the traffic. And what are we going to do about that when there's emergencies? And the second issue that I would like to address is that people coming to special surgery, and I totally respect the work that you do. I'm happy that you're in our neighborhood on York, but I think that you have failed, or you haven't thought about people that have handicap permits that have nowhere to park now because everything has been taken away. What about people like that are handicapped and have to use their cars? And these passes are very, very difficult to get. They are not given out indiscriminately. They are very, very strict in the Office of Handicapped Permits about who they give them to. And it is about mobility. And so right now, the area has been decimated with lack of parking. There's nowhere for people with handicap permits to park. And we're allowed to park by no parking anytime. We're allowed to park by commercial. Everything has been taken away. Just about. There's 5 spots between 79th and 80th Street on the west side of First Avenue. And that's the side that there are meters. And then there's two spots on the next block directly across. All the spots that were by Gracie Muse were taken away. There is a sitting area where people like to sit that's been closed for so long. What's going to happen there? You have a lot of seniors in the area, and you have a lot of people with babies and little children. I'd like to know if there's something that could be done to address these issues, because these are legitimate issues. Handicapped people, you're going to have handicapped people coming, you're going to have people with mobility problems coming into your facility because you work, I mean, it's a mobility issue. Special surgery. People have pain and they have areas of the body that may not be working or functioning properly. They're handicapped. That's why they're going there.
All right, thank you, Carol, for those comments. Let me just ask this question based on what you had said. Are there any accommodations that are provided at any other HSS facilities in Manhattan that provide for parking for people with disabilities? And that is something that we may want to address in the future. I don't think as we get closer and deal with other parking related.
Not to my knowledge, Craig.
But that's why I thought the city doesn't provide dedicated spaces, and that's a whole other policy issue. But that is something that we may want to talk about at some future points. So with that, I think we are done with all of our speakers. I want to thank you very, very much for all of the time that you gave us and for your patience in giving us 2 hours and answering all the questions that you did. And I hope that we can remain in communications. And as I said, I think as the project moves forward, it will be it would be helpful if we could perhaps touch base again and try to address any issues that are unresolved as of now, or that are going to be perhaps further along the line later on, where we may have more information, be able to act appropriately on them. So thank you very much.
We have is Colleen here for any report from DOT?
Thanks to Eli and everyone. I don't think Colleen's here. If you are here representing the Department of Transportation, could you either chat me or please raise your hand so we can find you? Again, thanks to Michael and Eli and everyone. I'm not seeing anyone, and I did email Colleen earlier and not get a response.
Okay. So do we have any old business then?
It looks like we have either new or old business from Michelle.
Or new or old business. We'll just get it all together. Michelle, I know, had a new business item. Why don't we unmute Michelle?
Thank you. I wanted to address the issue of a street naming at Hunter College. And this is not to address the merit of the person who the street was named after. It has nothing to do with the merit of that person. What it does have to do, though, is with a decision being made that did not come to this community board or this committee, which had been the practice for as many years as I can remember in the past. So I think I got a little bit of a handle as to how that happened, but I'm not pleased that it did happen. That issue should have come to us. And I think we should address that from a process point of view. My understanding, this might not be totally correct information, but my understanding is that it was not proposed by Hunter. And of course, not that it matters who proposed it, but that it was proposed by our council member. And again, not that it matters who proposed it, and not that it matters what the proposal was. What does matter is the fact that it didn't come through this committee and our community board. And that is the practice that is in violation of, you know, our protocol over many, 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 many years. So I'm wondering how the co-chairs feel about that. And do you have any plans to address it as an issue?
Yes, I think, Michelle, I think that normally they get referred to us regularly. We should talk to the Department of Transportation and find out, you know, why that didn't happen, and if we, you know, and if we can keep it from happening in the future. Because I agree that we ought to have a chance to deal with it.
Good. Thank you, Chuck. That'd be great. And can you, if you have a response, can you possibly
Sure.
report back to us in July?
Sure.
Or okay,
Yes,
great.
yes, yeah.
Thank you.
I guess there's Sandra Lerner, I guess, is next.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this had to do with Excel, and they're gone now, but the last time that they were there and showed us the rendering of the building, they had showed us the one entrance for HSS only patients, employees, whatever. Then there was supposed to be a separate entrance for the other tenants for the building on First Avenue. I did not see that entrance tonight. The other thing is, if they're going to have 2 to 3 retail businesses on First Avenue, because by the rendering, you could see that there were like 3 possible storefronts. That's more street traffic and more deliveries, not just with tenants in the building, but if you have retail on the sidewalk also, plus bringing back the buses with the ticket machines and the stanchion and all, it's going to make the sidewalk even more crowded. But I was concerned that they didn't show the separate entrance for the other tenants to the building. And I'm disappointed that the DOT isn't there, because Will knows very well that I have a lot of questions for DOT, but maybe next time when they're there, I'll be back to join you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Barbara Rutter, I think, is next. Barbara.
Barbara, look for.
Okay, I always do it too fast, Will, I'm sorry.
Okay.
This is old business, and it's personal to my street. So the 86th Street subway entrances are on the east side of 86th Street, both north and south. On the north side, on the west side, the northwest corner of 86th and First, used to be retail. It was bright, you know, you could walk and it was bright. It is very dark now. It's not as bad in the summer because, you know, if it's light until 8 o'clock, it's better. But in the winter and before it got brighter, it is really dark there. On the 86th Street side, it is a transfer station, I guess. It's something for the subway. On the 86th Street side, there seems to be some lights that do, I don't know whether that's what's giving lights or just the other stores that are around. On the 2nd Avenue side, there's nothing. The building doesn't shed light. They have gardens. They don't have retail or anything like that on the 2nd Avenue side. I wonder if there's anything to do. They can't put, I've asked that before. There's some sort of lighting that could go through there. Would make it a lot safer.
Oh, why don't we can ask that. We can ask We'll maybe make a inquiry about that to the MTA and the DOT.
Thank you.
Okay, Barbara. Charlie Whitman, very patiently here for QNU, Charlie.
Thank you. I see that Colleen's not here, and so I guess
Right.
I'm going to be speaking. I'd like to make a statement, at least if I can, and I'll try to make it as short as I.
Of course.
And the point is, I'm referring back to the project for the renovation of the Esplanade from 81st Street to 96. That's the total project, and the first phase, which is 81 through 84. And my particular interest is in the 81st Street cul-de-sac. And so far, we've asked, we've tried to get information on that from DOT. And I also asked at the Parks presentation, Eric Lancelota, who's the deputy engineer, was there. But he basically, kind of shied away. And the issue is, what are they really doing at 81st Street? As you may know, I was actively involved in the 81st Street pedestrian bridge. I know the cul-de-sac cold, and although it's a small area, there's a lot of cross currents in there. There's the fact that we are building 45 fronts a half a block on the Esplanade. We also have 45 feet of building on the cul-de-sac and our service entrance. So when you're looking, we look at that cul-de-sac as being the main entrance for John Finley. Really, it's the staircase to John Finley, and there's a lot of traffic there. One of the things I'd like to mention, we're really looking at 2 points, and I wanted to make 2 points. One is there are some structural issues in there, and I haven't heard anybody from the DOT or Parks addressing that. And the second one has to do with the traffic issues. I'll try the structural one first, because that's the one that no one's really covered. The stairs themselves are 75 years old. They're hollow underneath. There's a hollow spacing. We've seen it from studies we've received from the city agencies. There is water seepage that comes in from the promenade and snow melt as well, and that has been eroding the stairs for the last 75 years. If you look on the side wall, there's a retaining wall that's 2 stories high, and if you look at the stones there, you will find that a lot of them have gaps in them. The mortar is out there, is gone. So structurally, we feel the water has not only gone through the stairs, but gone and affected the wall as well. And that wall is one of the main supports for the stairs. So we're saying that if you're looking at addressing things in the 81st, in the promenade, this part, really, that area is also an integral part, I think, of the promenade. And in addition to that, you have the railings. The railings on 81st Street and the parapet walls match the railings and the parapet walls on John Finley Walk that run all the way from 81st Street up to 90th, is it? And so I didn't see anything in the plans that said they were looking at redoing those and making them fit in such a way that it gave a uniform look to John Finley Walk all the way up. So those are the structural issues that we're raising. And then the second one is the issue of just being consulted if the decision is to move ahead on an ADA ramp. And we're not for or against. It's just we have to see if there's a decision made. Then the question becomes, how do you fit it? And we've done a lot of studies on that before. We have security cameras on the corner of 81st Street, so we know exactly what the traffic is, both from pedestrian traffic, and we also are very much aware of what goes in and out of our service entrance. So those are the issues we really wanted to highlight. And I think the other thing is we wanted to, I don't know whether it makes sense for me to put this in a letter and write it to you folks to forward to DOT, or what's the best way of proceeding on it? Because my concern is there's been a blackout now. It's been the 1 year anniversary of the presentation. And their June presentation to me was not exactly clear on what they were doing in this cul-de-sac. And also they haven't, I don't believe they've spoken of Brearley, which up the line also is another area that really they should look at and talk to. And so I don't know what's the best. I'm looking for a way to follow up. I was hoping Colleen would be here and I could be able to write her a letter, but I don't want to let it go for 3 months and they come back and say, well, now we've decided to do this and the community is left out.
Well, Charlie, I understand the issue. You and I have talked about this, and I actually spoke to Ed Pinkar about this a few times, and he was supposed to be meeting with some of the technical or engineering people at DOT about it, and then it never took place. And I'd like to follow up with him, but maybe you could put down send us something on the points that you just discussed, and we'll see if we can get an answer out of Ed, or if he can then get an answer out of his people.
Okay, great. That would be great. I think the main thing seems to be, unless I go into something concrete, I think it's going to be hard to get an answer from. They'll just kind of defer it.
Right. Yep. You're right.
Okay.
So if
do
you
you want me
put
to
that down,
send it directly to you, Chuck, or to the committee, or how?
Send it to Will, and he'll send it around to me and Craig and stuff.
Sounds great.
Good.
Well, thanks very much. Thanks for hearing me out.
Well, you've been an activist in this for a long time, and so we appreciate all your work. Rita Popper.
I just want to add to what Barbara Rutter said. There are so many streets that are so dark, especially when you're crossing the street. And even though I know they pave the streets every 5 years, but we have so much construction, that we have so many patches, that we have so many holes, that I wondered, instead of us being a single voice, have other community boards voice their opinion about the darkness of the streets. And my next thing was to make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Well, I think that I don't think we have anyone ready to speak. So I think even though it's not exactly the way you make the motion, that's okay.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah, of course. Before we adjourn.
Just looking ahead, I want everyone to be aware that our meeting is not the first Wednesday of the month next month because of a scheduling conflict. I believe it is Tuesday, July 12th. So everyone just mark your calendars.
Yeah, I assume that's right, Will.
That is right.
Okay, we've heard from the Oracle. Okay, I believe we are adjourned, and I thank Craig for shouldering all the burden here. So we're adjourned till the 12th of July. Thanks, everyone.